Welcome to Conversations with Anne Elizabeth, the podcast inspired by my book, I'm a Registered Dietitian, Now What?, where I have the absolute joy to sit back, relax, and have a conversation about nutrition with a variety of people who share their personal story of passion and purpose, especially registered dietitians. Today's conversation is with Dina D'Alessandro, a registered dietitian who is passionate about helping people embrace and develop new relationships with food in her own personal community. Today's episode is sponsored by Nick Sticks, turkey and beef snack sticks that are my favorite because they have all the goodness and none of the garbage. Nick makes snack sticks that start with 100% grass-fed beef and free-range turkey raised right here in the state of Iowa. No MSG, no nitrates, and no sugar, just a lot of protein for the perfect snack. I have a special link on my website under the Things I Love tab where you can receive 20% off your next order. Dina is a human who inspires me from the other side of the country. I was very excited to learn more about her on a professional and personal level during our conversation, which completely exceeded my expectations. Dina is the dietitian I am constantly striving to be. She is passionate about nutrition and food in her community by volunteering her time and providing nutrition education programming right where she lives. She also works at a high-risk ob-gyn practice, runs a part-time private practice, and is a preceptor. She is also very close to graduating with her master's degree and is working on getting fit by 50, and she truly carries a pure entrepreneurial spirit. Please enjoy my conversation with Dina. Well, exactly. I'm so glad that we could connect today. It's been fun kind of get to know you over Instagram. I think that's like my new favorite platform to meet new friends. So,
yes.
And I love all the stuff that you're doing. And that's why I was like, I really want to talk to her and just kind of see more about your story and kind of the things that you do and your passion. So
thank you.
Glad that you are willing to do this with me today.
Oh my gosh, I feel honored. I think I scrolled through, I was trying to look and see when our first conversation started. So I think it was almost about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, because we've never met in person. We met through online, but anybody that I meet through social media, I immediately just think, we're friends. We've known each other since childhood. So, so I kind of had to go through and be like, what was the first connection? I can't remember. It might've just been a random post. But anyway, my point is I fangirl over a lot of you guys who I think are way more significant and way more established in just the whole registered dietitians field, the nutrition entrepreneur world, and just the dietitian stuff, and then also, of course, social media as well, where I'm fairly new to all of this. So I fangirl, and so that when you reach out and you're like, we have to get a date on the calendar, I'm like, oh my god, and just ask me to get an interview.
I do the same thing that you do. So I always am like fangirl. I love that term, fangirl. I'm always doing that over, people like you yourself too. I'm like, I love your posts. You've made me laugh so much. I'm like, she is someone that I felt like I could just sit down with any day and just have a chat and just laugh our butts off. Yeah, it's true. We start with a conversation, we forget where we're going, we come back to it, and then we still keep laughing throughout the whole way. Yeah, I like that. I like having a weird sense of humor. It didn't work in my favor as a younger person. People often thought I was weird and had like a quirky, weird sense of humor. But now I'm glad that the people who appreciate that have found me and I found them, because that's where I like to thrive. I like making light of things if I can, or just randomly being goofy. Well, good. Well, that's a good start or end or middle. We'll call it the middle of life. You
have to have a happy heart. You have to have some kind of joy in your soul, I think, to get through a lot of stuff that could, be kind of overwhelming. Yeah.
And finding the right people to share all that with is so important too. So. Well, just because you mentioned when you were younger, when did you start? I mean, let's just kind of go back to when you started kind of finding your place in the field of dietetics, nutrition, and tell me about that.
How far back? Zygote or like, elementary school? I'm going to go.
Maybe when you can go as far back as you want, because maybe you did have a touch back in elementary school.
It's funny. I grew up, I just actually recently said my dad was the OG, like the original organic gardener. I grew up with an immigrant family who we grew our own food for the most part. I mean, of course we went grocery shopping, but we ate a lot of food from our backyard. And it wasn't like we had a farm. We had a very just plain, middle income, middle type of urban lifestyle or suburban lifestyle rather. And so I remember gardening with him and my grandma. My grandma used to make homemade pastas. My mom would, very Italian family, as of course my last name entails there, that we would stand over the stove on any given Sunday and just, spend hours and hours and hours making our own food. So it really never dawned on me that I could eat boxed items for the most part. Like I always felt like there was somebody in the kitchen that's like, here, take this. I just created it. So anyway, so my early memories were definitely from as a very, very young child, like 4 or 5 or so, of making food and actually getting my hands dirty and learning recipes and opening up books that just had like scribbled information on them and no measurements. It was like a little bit until soft or, roll it out until whatever. And I'm like, that's not standardized. Like that's very hard to follow. Yeah, a pinch of this is fine, but when they say add enough water to make wet, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So there was that unique moment of time when I was young. And then when I got a little bit older, like say around 10 or 11, and I started going to, the library in town, and I would only rent out or take out, cookbooks. And I was always trying my hand at something and trying to find different flavors and different ways of cooking and baking. And my mom, thank goodness, let me, I was supervised, of course, but let me in the kitchen and let me have whatever I needed to have in the kitchen to create all these little dishes and so on. Like, I think I remember a Winnie the Pooh cookbook or something where I made some honey related dish at the time because that's his thing. Yeah. And then as I got older, I really wanted to venture into culinary stuff. So that whole creation of food and making my own recipes, I used to entertain a lot. And so as I got older, I wanted to go into culinary school, but my parents were very old world. They didn't understand what that meant. They were not pleased of spending money on culinary school versus, a traditional academic college. So they didn't get it. So I ventured into just regular academia, and I took as many culinary courses as I possibly could on my own. So weekend pastry classes or knife skills classes or saucing classes. And I ended up doing like a catering workshop one weekend. And so little bits and pieces along the way. It was mostly food. Mm-hmm. Not really nutrition just yet, but because I grew up on the homegrownness of it, it was kind of the quote unquote organic style of things. So there wasn't a lot of heavily processed stuff. Everything was very clean, quote unquote clean. I'm going to say that, noticeable ingredients, things that you can taste, not too heavily sauced, those types of things.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because, when you think about standard academia, you're taking so when you decided to, you really didn't have like nutrition or dietetics stay on your radar. You had more of like that culinary experience and wanting to do that culinary thing. So how did dietetics find you?
Right. That's actually how it did happen. So as a lot of us, I think in this field, we have some commonalities as to what drew us to the dietetics world. And for me, it was health related. So over the course of my, say, early to mid 20s, I was suffering with a lot of gastrointestinal things. Most of it was kind of stress at that time, depending on what I was doing as far as work was concerned and my workload was concerned. Not much has changed, but I've been able to manage it a little bit better now, 20 something years later, or 30 something years. Yeah. So then I was trying to figure out what was going on with me, and I was doing a lot of my own, not so much like elimination diets, but just kind of figuring out is something triggering it without realizing that was a thing at the time. Anyway, so that was in my 20s. And then over the course of the next handful of years, I just did what I did, and I dealt with my tummy issues, and I tried to get doctors to check on me and see what was going on, thinking maybe it was something specific or there was a trigger to it or whatever. And I was just diagnosed with, gastroenteritis. very random, non-specific thing. So I ended up kind of whittling away a lot of stuff. Like I gave up coffee for a really long time. I gave up refined sugars for a really long time. I became a vegetarian, which I still to this day remain fairly plant-based, but I've started integrating more fish and a little bit more flexible, I guess, in my eating habits at this point, now that I kind of know what does make me a little bit more sensitive. But flash forward to 2012, I guess it was, over the course of time, I was doing my own work of things that were not food or nutrition related at all. And I was undergoing a lot of these stressful conditions again. And I kept saying to myself, whatever happened to food? Like, where did that go in my life? Like, I ended up in a whole different direction, which we could talk about separately or today, as far as like project management goes and that type of thing. But in my head, I thought, if I stay here and I keep doing this job, that's fine, but will I miss out on what I wanted to do? And I always thought of maybe combining the food component with the health component. And does that exist out there? So I actually started looking into more like integrative health coach programs and just like 6-month certification things and just to learn a little bit more about general nutrition and food and that type of thing, and coaching, and not so much the registered dietitian medical nutrition approach. So as that came about, as often things do, and as I'm sure we probably talked about this before, like once you put thoughts and actions into place, it's the world lines up and starts handing you things that's like, oh, did you mean this? And you're like, oh my gosh, I totally meant that. And so opportunities started coming up and presenting themselves to me. And so case in point, my boyfriend's sister is a public school health nurse, and she was a preceptor for a dietetic internship program not too far from where I live. And she said, there's a thing called dietetic intern, registered dietitian, master's degree in nutrition. And I'm like, what? So she put me in touch with the program director at the time, and we chatted, and we had this whole long chat, and I went up and visited the campus, and my eyes were wide open, and I actually said to myself, I had a BA in communication, but just like languages, I pick up on things very easily. It's not easy for me to master them, but I can get it. So I thought, well, a BA in communication, and I eventually would like to have an MS in nutrition. How hard is that to go? And I'll do what I need to do to understand it. But I think I deserve to have a degree, because once I started kind of understanding of what that entailed and where I could go with it, whether I took the community approach, whether I took the clinical approach, whether I went into food policy or something along those lines, I just said to myself, I think the direction I want to go in, it would behoove me to have some sort of credential that would, again, with all due respect to health coaching and maybe non-credentialed nutritionists and health coaches, that for me, in the direction I wanted to go to, if I wanted to be on the board of directors of something, or if I wanted to teach at some point, that I just felt it would be better if I had a bachelor or a master in something related to nutrition or public health or something like that. So that's how that ended up turning out. So, but I was 43 at the time, and I didn't realize how much went into it. And, had I kind of thought to do things a little differently, I probably would have. So I can talk in terminology that your listeners understand. So like the DPD program, right? The didactic program to get me from my Bachelor of Arts into a more sciencey focused thing. So that was like 60 something credits. So, once I finished that, had I thought ahead, I probably would have gone into a master's program directly after that and then done the internship. But instead I had an integrated internship where I did the master's with it, and I'm still doing the master's. Like I'm still finishing off the master's. So it took a lot. Yeah. I'm on my last 71 days left until my final exam, until my graduation. Yeah. It's been a 5-year from beginning to end, where I thought it was like, a 1.5 master's program. It's like, no. You have to do this for the didactic program, the DPD. Then you have to apply for the internship. And while you're in the internship, you're going to have to enroll in our master's programs. Now, granted, not every program is like this structure, but mine was. And so with the internship simultaneously, we had to take 3 master's courses, including, I think, the supervised practice seminar that everything comes along with. But we were doing, MNT, case studies, biostatistics. I mean, all this stuff was going on while we were also out there doing our rotations and sleeping 3 hours a night. So at my age, I always say it's never too late to start something new, but like at my age, I really kind of was like, wow, I was not prepared. So I probably would recommend, if I had gone back in time or for anyone else in this position, just be conscientious of what is being put on your plate and just be aware. Someone like me, who I know I get really run down really quickly, that I wasn't necessarily prepared for it. And I think even now, here it is 5 years later, a year and a half after I actually landed and became an official RD, that I'm just now starting to recover from it. So just a lesson learned.
Yeah.
But if I went the master's route first and then did the internship, I'd still probably be like, oh man, this is really tiring. And now I want a job and I have to get paid nothing. So it's kind of good that it worked out in that way, because I'm finishing off my master's degree now while I can make some income.
While you're working.
While I'm working. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I checked off the box of being an RD, but
I was to say, everything that you're doing, this is all second career for you. So you had a whole other career before you even started this.
I had like 6 careers.
What are your careers? I'd like.
Oh my gosh. I don't like staying in one place for very long, but I'm good at what I do. So people like to promote me to things. And then eventually I'm like, I'm tired. I want to go somewhere else. And so every few years I get kind of antsy. And if I feel like, I've met my goals and I don't really think I can do much else at a particular organization, I'll start looking. But what also ends up happening is people tend to headhunt me. So it's nice. It's nice to know that my work ethic speaks for itself and people get to know who I am. Anyway, so I started out with a BA in communication. I immediately went into, I opened up my part-time catering and event planning company. So I was doing that kind of on the side while I was working as a project manager and office manager for a broadcast engineering firm. So they built television studios and I helped them organize the schedule. And that, I think, the thread that runs over this past 20 years of my career life, whatever, kind of incarnation it's taken, has always been about structure and organization. Like, I'm good at thinking backwards and planning ahead and that type of thing. So that's the thread that leads me there. So the project management thing there turned into, I worked at a retail corporation as a head buyer for like a health and beauty aids department in a large retail corporation that is here in Manhattan. And then from there, I went into publishing as a publishing coordinator / as executive assistant to someone who had overseen the whole publishing house. So he was like the sales and marketing guy. So I got to see the bird's eye view of the publishing house, not just necessarily one tiny department like editorial. I got to see all of it. So that was really cool because, again, I'm helping run the show. I'm helping coordinate all of the publication dates. And entertainment wise too was in there too. There was a lot of very cool media related things that we were doing, like, ebooks at the time wasn't a big thing, but now it is. And so that was kind of neat too. And some celebrity authors. So that was the publishing thing. Oh my gosh, what else happened after that? Right. So then after that was when I got headhunted by one of my friends at the time who worked for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene here in New York City. So it was local government. And she asked me to come on board and help project manage, I guess, for lack of a better word, their emergency management bureau. So it was, I called myself the party planner for real world catastrophes. So if anything, major, yeah, it's funny until you get hepatitis, because that was one of the real world catastrophes that you might be taking a part of. So if there was like a Hep A outbreak, if there was a flu outbreak, if there was coastal storm, which there were, if there was a biological issue, like we had anthrax scares and so on, we would come together as an agency and follow. And well, our bureau, the one that I was involved in, ran the planning department. Like, we kind of organized what the plans are in case something has to shut down and you have to go out into the world and, prepare to respond to an emergency. And so, I was there for about 4 years, and that's actually where the last of my career ended at that point. That was when I sat in my cubicle there going, whatever happened to food? I don't want to do emergency management anymore. Like, I was a project manager, and I guess this is kind of still the same, but I'm not an emergency responder. And that was kind of part of the job. And, I like volunteering for things. I like working in soup kitchens, but I do not like running out into the field where disaster strikes. I'd rather not be the go-to person for that. I know my weaknesses. So that's kind of where I started saying to myself, exactly like that. I'm 40 something years old. If I don't make this change now, being 4 years into this particular job, and maybe go back and see if I can revisit that whole culinary, food, nutrition, health type of aspect in that way, then what do I do here? Do I just ride it out and collect my pension in 25 years, or do I do something else and not regret having left? So I opted to leave. But yeah, all those careers, that was kind of the running theme, was always the organization, the project management of things, the party planning of things. And I was good at that, and I'm still good at it.
So how are you? So interesting. I mean, it's very interesting to think about all those previous positions, but how they can still kind of tie into dietetics too, like you just said.
Yes.
Which is amazing because, that wasn't even on your radar, but then you always went back to food. And so it's funny how that, like, people always say, well, I didn't love that job, but it still is helpful for you going forward as an RD.
Absolutely. I mean, I think maybe subconsciously I knew the skills that I had, but also, thank goodness, I had quite a lot of people, whether it was subordinates or supervisors, who gave me a lot of good feedback and positive feedback about things that I didn't necessarily recognize in myself, the strengths that I had in myself about leadership, about organizational stuff. And I started saying, okay, so all those weird quirks that I used to say to myself, I'm so anal about XYZ. That's actually a strength sometimes in some of these careers that I've had, because it helps structure things, helps put things into place, and to help people get from point A to point Z. I'm their conduit to help them get to that. So that was kind of cool to kind of step back and say to myself, wow, all these things lined up, and that common running thread through all of these careers that I've had, and not careers, these positions, I should say, because the fields differed, but the position and the requirements of what I was in all of those were fairly similar. And it didn't require me to become something I wasn't. Like, I was never uncomfortable. Again, the last job I had made me uncomfortable in that secondary part of what was being asked in my position, the emergency response part of it, but the actual primary part of it was something I was very comfortable with. I liked standing up. I liked leading meetings. I liked organizing things. I liked sending calendar invites out and working backwards from, when our deadlines were, and kind of organizing who's doing what by when, and managing all those little tasks and minutia. And where other people just liked big picture things and couldn't wrap their head around all those little details, enter Dina. So that was something that I at least... Yeah. So like you said, sometimes people have to kind of take a little bit of a step back, or ask others, tell me what you think about my strengths and where you think I could potentially be of use in this particular field. And maybe it's something that I haven't necessarily delved into on my own, but that's where I will now put my attention, and hopefully it'll grow and it'll flourish and be beneficial in some way.
Absolutely. And I like your message about that, because I think, and you're a preceptor now too, aren't you? So I'm not busy enough. So I signed up to be a preceptor. I'm not busy enough. So I wanted to take on more responsibility. Yes, I'm a preceptor now. Well, which is good though, because like you said, you are now going to be that person that's going to help other dietitians to realize things about themselves that maybe they wouldn't realize in a previous.
Yeah, it's so funny. I forget that I'm there to kind of guide them. Like when I've worked with so many in just the last year alone, I think I'm almost up to like a dozen now at this point, DIs. And then I have had student volunteers as well, which I think I've massed about, I think close to 60 student volunteers in the last year and a half, just because the volunteers, obviously they randomly come and go, like whatever they can give as far as hours and stuff. But the interns, obviously they're plugged in, they're assigned to you as a rotation, and they have, like a full-time job with you. But anyway, my point was going to be, I'm also in awe of them. They're bringing new life. They're bringing new knowledge. They're bringing new skill sets. So I kind of sit there and go, oh, right. I'm supposed to supervise you and guide you. But oftentimes I'm like, what do you think of this? And I think I appreciate that. And I think they appreciate that too, because I'm sure we don't all have perfect preceptor experiences. There might have been a lot of times where some of us felt very, not confident, and then maybe felt a little demeaned depending on who was running the show. So I think it's nice that I approach it like I'm your equal in a way. I'm still learning and you're still learning, but I might have some extra experience that you don't have just yet because you're just coming in at this point. But like I said, they bring other things to me that I'm like, wow, I must not have been paying attention in class, or this is like a new piece of information that I learned from them as well, which is always nice.
And it's always important to keep learning, which it sounds like you're going to be one of those people forever that will want to keep learning as much as possible.
I can't not. I mean, I'm very set in my ways. I always joke like I'm a crotchety old woman sometimes in curmudgeonly ways and so on, but I'm very open-minded. Like, I'm okay when people say, maybe it's you, Dina, like maybe you should just take a look for a second, see if this is the common issue that's happening. Maybe you need to be a little bit more flexible. And of course, at first I'm like, how dare you? But then I go, you know what? You might be right. And so I like to see if that feedback is constructive. Obviously, I'm open to it, but even if it's not, sometimes there's truth in that you kind of have to wrap your head around and go, I don't know how to, I don't know how to take this in right now or how to respond to that. And I feel also, if I may add, that you have to sometimes be uncomfortable in progressing, right? Not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to go skydiving if I'm afraid of heights, but like just take that moment to say, this is a situation that makes me uncomfortable, because then I can prepare myself for another experience like that, the similar experience, where now I'm prepared. I have the tools and the strategies that I understand of like how to address that. I've never, you learn, right? I've never was approached with this particular situation, and now it made me uncomfortable to be in it. But now going forward, if it happens again, I know how to either stand my ground or speak out or address it, or, whatever, de-escalate whatever that particular situation is. So yes,
which is what you did. Yeah, which is what you did with your, when you're sitting there in your cubicle and you're like, whatever happened to food?
Yeah. Yes.
Found that you were like, I'm uncomfortable and I need to make my situation better, which is why, or make your situation more of what you wanted it to be and what you wanted your future to be.
Yeah. And I think, again, we tend, well, I'm globally generalizing this. I'm saying we tend, as in maybe females, dietitians, I don't know, people I know, we don't pat ourselves on the back often enough. We don't give ourselves enough credit, I think, sometimes to be fearless in that way, to say, I could either sit here in this cushy job for the next 17 years and not make a peep and just work my way up and blah, blah, blah. But I think it takes a lot to put yourself in that position where it's like, oh my gosh, if I quit, what if I don't find another job? Or if I decide to go back to school, how am I going to pay for this? And kind of not be careless in the sense of, it'll all work out, like to have some sort of plan and action, of course, get people who are in your world on your side, and know that if you have to obviously make some financial arrangements and getting yourself from one place to another to get that additional education or to move on to some other job that you need to move on to, if some places holding you back or making you feel really icky going into work or whatever that is. So I think there's a fearlessness to that. And I think that's why I do get drawn to you guys, like the entrepreneur people that I'm finding online. I think we all have that personality where we're not afraid to take chances, and we're not afraid to bust out. We're not afraid to start something that we think is going to work. And if it doesn't work, just go, that didn't work, and move on to something else.
I agree. And I think with dietetics, I don't know about you, but I've been a dietitian for 17 years now. And it's amazing how when I started, how much more we're branching out and we're trying new things. So I love that you said that, because I think it's so important that we keep trying new things, even if we didn't do it in school or if we didn't do it in our internship. Why not? Why not try new things?
Right. Yeah, and question stuff too. I mean, I try to respect everybody who's gone before me. I'm also not so confident that I don't think I can't learn more. And then, of course, the ones coming up the ranks too, I'm open to hear what they have to say as well. So it's a lot of information sharing, questioning things, and not feeling so defensive about stuff too. Like, you're more than welcome to have your opinion, but is it okay to open up a discussion and be civil about it, right? Diplomatic. Well, obviously, if anybody's part of the academy, we all were asked to sign that pro-civility agreement too. So it's about just kind of being okay with the discomfort, and be open to the new, to question things and to advance in that way.
It's a fun time to be a dietitian for that, I think.
I think so too. So
tell me about, so you I want to know, did you ever waver when you went back to school over the past 5 years? Were you like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? Did you ever question yourself during that time?
Part of me wants to say like daily. I did. I was probably like, what the heck? But then I had a feeling you were going to ask me this. And then a part of me is like, no, because I have this thing when I set out to do something, I just do it. And if I fail at it, then at least I've done it and I don't have regret. So even if I'm like, oh my God, that sucked so hard, but at least I took the chance and did it. So at least now I'm coming with a little bit more knowledge that if I were faced with some, cause it's like tattoos. I get one, it hurts. I'm never getting another one again. But the second I walk out, I'm like, whoa, what should I get for next one? And now same thing with this. I hated how it felt to be in school and sleep 3 hours a night for 5 years, it seems like. But as soon as I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm like, should I go for my PhD?
Yeah, so, I was just going to say, is that what's on the horizon for you?
I guess. And I mean, I need a proper break. I need to lie down for like a solid week after all this is done. But I do like, I don't know. I like being busy. Anyway, my point was, when I set out to do something, there's a goal, and I have to say, I've been successful in that. I might not have been successful in achieving the end result I set out to achieve, but I've been successful in saying, I'm going to go do that, and I've done it. So, yeah. So the pain and discomfort, was it worth it? We'll see. I mean, I think right now, absolutely, because I'm still in that growing phase, and I'm still kind of moving through this field with my mouth shut and my eyes and ears open, soaking in as much as I can, figuring out who my people are. Like you have the quote on your website about your tribe, right? Like figuring out where I fit best and who my tribe is, and being open to maybe dumping some of the preconceived notions I had about whatever I started out doing, being a little bit more open to what might come to me organically.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good too, because obviously dietetics through your what was it, your sister-in-law or your
well, yeah, technically she's my boyfriend's sister, but we've been together for 1,000 years, so we all call each other in-laws.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, like dietetics came through you organically through that situation. Mm-hmm. So I love that you're open to what could ever come your way, and I think that's a good message for all dietitians, that even if you've been in a position for years and you don't see yourself changing, you still can be open to something new.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's a good message for anybody, really, dietitians or otherwise. I mean, I just think it's a good message where I feel a lot of people tend to kind of get complacent. Like I was saying before, I've been in this job. I'm afraid to move on. I haven't done anything else. But like, so what? Because we're all I think we all meet that moment in our lives where that path happens, and it's scary, but it might or might not work out. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean bad things. It just means, okay, that was maybe something that's a lesson learned, and you can get back on the path. I think it's rare that you'll find people will just say, forget it, you're not allowed to come back ever, and then we won't embrace you back into, this circle, and we're going to oust you because you decided to go on to this different career. I think, people are very... at least the people I've come across are very flexible and open and accommodating, that if you make a mistake, it's fine.
And you just gotta keep moving on, for sure. Mm-hmm. So tell me about so I always see you post a lot of stuff of the activities that you're doing. You do a lot of things in the public. Tell me about all the things that you're doing as an RD.
So right now as we're recording this, we're in a little bit of a hiatus because it's cold out. So we do most of the community stuff, the community outreach, and the the nutrition education things that we do outside. Obviously, these are more in the the summer months when it's warmer out. So some of the things we've done, I want to start concentrically and work my way out as far as marketing myself as like the quote unquote neighborhood nutritionist. So I'm in the East Village in Lower Manhattan, and I always have this thing where I don't feel comfortable taking people's business unless I've been able to provide to them in some way. So I don't want to just set up a table with my business cards and be like, sign up, I'm get my newsletter and be my client. I want to say, like, how can I contribute in some voluntary way first, get to know me a little bit, feel me out, and let's see if we can establish a mutually beneficial relationship. So in doing so, way back when, about 1.5 years ago, the first crew of volunteer nutrition student volunteers that I had, we did a needs assessment. And I know I'm kind of going a roundabout way in answering your question, but this is how maybe we'll help people to go, how does this happen? So we did a needs assessment. We had at our, we were able to secure some like community health profiles that the Department of Health puts out every 5 years. And we got to understand like what the needs of the community in each of these zones were. So I know, for instance, that where I live, East Village is in the zone 3 of Manhattan, which corresponds with the Lower East Side and Chinatown. So there are English speaking, there are Spanish speaking, and there are Chinese speaking people. And 28% of our 28% of our residents live below the poverty line, but 72% of our residents do not. So I could just as much go out and charge for my services, and I could also give back to a community that would probably appreciate that. So we made some collaborative efforts with a community health center, with some supermarkets, and just put our names out, like grocery stores, like health food stores in the area, just put our names out there and asked, is there any way that we can be of service to you? And so one of the things we did with the community center down the street from where I live is they do a CSA, community supported agriculture farm share, every week with their patrons. And so their patrons come in every Tuesday and they pick up their, whatever their, produce bags are. But we were able to set up a table outside on the sidewalk. So you don't have to be a patron of the community center to enjoy what we're doing out there. So what we did was every other Tuesday or so, we'd grab a handful of whatever the produce delivery was, and we would on the spot, kind of like, an episode of one of these Food Network shows, on the spot, we would just make up a couple of recipes raw, because we never brought hot plates with us. We just brought knives and spatulas and whatever, and we would create a savory recipe and a sweet recipe on the spot with whatever we were able to get. So we had things like fruits, obviously, vegetables, herbs, onions, things like that, that were part of the produce that was delivered. And then we would just put that out in little sample cups. And whoever was passing by, if you're a neighborhood resident, you just coming home from work, stop by and say hi. And we chit chat with people. And so that was kind of cool, just to give back to the community and also just get integrated. Yeah.
And get yourself out there to meet the people in your community.
Exactly. And we had a lot of, random people asking questions. Some people would just walk by, grab a sample cup and just peace out, which is fine too. Mm-hmm. But we also, if we knew ahead of time kind of what the season was and what it would entail, we also printed out some general recipes, like based on what you might get in your farmer's market share today. This is stuff that is, inspired by that particular season's bounty. And we printed out little things. So we chit chat with people, hand out recipes. The volunteers and I would stand out there. And I never once pitched the business. Like, I had business cards out there, but I never once was like, sign up for my newsletter. Or it was just chatting about food and, oh, this is raw. I didn't know you can eat corn raw. I was like, oh my gosh, you can eat so many vegetables raw. Like, you don't have to go crazy with cooking, and everything can be very simple. And that's also part of the conversation too, simplicity and ease of effort. And especially in Manhattan, where I live, very small space living. I mean, you've seen my kitchen and my refrigerator on Instagram. It's like shoebox tiny. So, so there's that. And then also the supermarket guy that I met up with, he has, weirdly enough, a giant parking lot that just doesn't get used because who's driving in Manhattan right now, but it's also kind of cordoned off for their freight trucks. And so I drag out, this is me on like any given Saturday in the summer, I drag out a 6-foot table a few blocks away, set up shop on the parking lot. We do a little My Plate nutrition education thing. We do a little nutrition facts label nutrition education thing. And then off to the side, I kind of joke like the Peanuts, where, was it Lucy and the Therapist thing? Like, I'm just out there like, giving out free consultations. Like, come on down for your 15-minute free consult. So we, if you have any concerns or anything, of course, I always have a disclaimer. I have people sign the necessary. I realize this is not medical advice. And I'm just like, tell me what your goals are. Let's see if we can get you kind of kickstarted here. And if you need to come back and chat, we'll be back in 2 weeks and whatever. So it's just community engagement to start small. And then,
do you get people that come back then and come back to chat with you? And I mean, obviously
sometimes sometimes for sure at the CSA, because those are the regular patrons that are already part of the season's market share. Those for sure will come back just because it happens to be the timing of it. The supermarket is a little hit or miss. It depends on what these people's grocery needs are, I guess. But we do advertise, like we have little flyers that we stick up on the bulletin boards, and it's like, come back on, the second and fourth Saturday of October, or, whatever the dates might be. So if people really wanted to come back, they could. And again, I always have my business cards out there so that they can find me and follow me if they want to, because then I also promote it on social media about, come visit us on this day. And I think too, and like it helps with the volunteers too, that it's interesting for them to see they just want to be a part of whatever, which I always appreciate. So whatever they want to do is cool. And these things are on nights and weekends. So I also appreciate that I'm taking their free time away from them as they're coming in as, just nutrition student volunteers. But they also kind of get to see what goes on behind the scenes of somebody first starting up a private practice, because we all have a different approach to it. So this is my way of community engaging, but it might not be someone else's way. And they also get to feedback. So at the end of it, we have a little debrief. Like when we're packing everything up, I'm like, how do you think things went? Who did you speak to? What was interesting? What would you have done differently? And I ask them for their input, the volunteers, and we tweak accordingly as the next event comes up.
See, and I think that's great, because you're really getting to know your community. And I think you have to get to know your community before you can really market a business to anybody.
Right. So, I don't want to feel like a poser. Like I'm just sitting around being like, hey, I'm setting up shop. Yeah, hey, right. I know everything. Meanwhile, it's like I don't even patronize half of these places because I've been held hostage in school for 5 years. So I haven't been able to go and visit your coffee shop and visit your, candle store or any of these cute little boutiques. So I don't feel it's appropriate for me to say, like, can I hang my flyer here without me actually purchasing something or chatting about our neighborhood and getting to know the neighbors.
So do you kind of see yourself
supporting their business as well?
Sure. You're kind of like you're kind of like the Chamber of Commerce of dietitians of your neighborhood.
Oh my gosh, I want to be like a grand poobah of something. I'm totally that. Oh my gosh.
Kind of see yourself.
Does that come with suspenders?
There you go. You could totally do that. When you're done in 71 days, what does that kind of look for you then? What do you, minus your week of sleep that you're going to just lay down for a week, but.
Right. So, I mean, I'm a big talker. There's no real sleep. So as things turn out, there's no sleep ever for Dina. And I realize that it's not good. I realize that I say yes to a lot of things and I spread myself thin, but opportunities happen. I say no to a lot, trust me, but there are some things I just don't feel comfortable saying no to because I think this could play a good role in my future. But the timing of it just doesn't work well in my world. So as is the case, a day before I graduate, I'm starting to teach an undergrad summer college course on the same campus of that I'm graduating. So I'm right. So it's a 2-day a week. It's 6 weeks long. It's just a summer session, but it's like the crack of dawn and it's about an hour away from where I live. So it's going to be a lot of traveling and grading. I guess, I have to grade things. I've never done a college course before, but I have to grade things and be around for correspondence and have an office hour or something. So so I don't really technically have that week, but I'll have a week sometime this year.
Oh, well, that's exciting.
That I'll sleep. I'll be like, I'm going to hibernation.
Yes,
finally.
That, for sure. Well, that's exciting though. Like teaching a class, I think you would be fantastic at that.
Oh, I am so excited. So again, one of the things that I did way back a million years ago while I was in between other jobs and doing other things, I actually went and what was it called? It's like a teaching certificate of eligibility or whatever in New Jersey where I used to live. And I applied for that and I got it. So in New Jersey, and I think in a lot of other states, you can do what's called the alternate route. So you don't necessarily have to go through school to become a teacher. You can kind of plug in, I guess if I were to relay this, it's kind of like the DPD of the education world. So you don't have to necessarily have to have a degree in education. You can take the alternate route, which means you go through some courses, you take a test, and then the state certifies you as far as teaching eligibility. So I think I got qualified for like K through 8. And I became a substitute teacher, and that was great because that helped pay a couple of bills in between some other things that I was doing or in between jobs that I was having. I was able to be a sub, and both short-term and long-term. So in that, I decided to take the exam to become an actual, like, qualified to actually be an alternate route teacher. And I did. I got that. That's the thing I was saying about getting qualified for K through 8. So I've never done the college route, but I've been reading up a lot of this, and I'm also not a very conventional type of person. Like, I hate standing in front and just lecturing and reading off of slides, you know, like bullet by bullet, and just, I'm like, you can see that, right? So let's just chit chat. Let's find out what you guys want to do. So I think there's something about that whole K through 8 and K through 12 way of teaching where it's a lot more hands-on. You know, you're developing children's skills that kind of doesn't necessarily feel like anybody pays attention to in college, but we're all still learning. So I don't know why that doesn't still apply. I don't think it's okay to have a room full of people just staring at you falling asleep while you're like, you know, like this talking head. So I'm excited about it because a part of me is like, I'm going to revamp the way college teaching is. And maybe that happens and maybe I'll get yelled at for my unconventional methods, but I'm willing to do it. Because again, there's that fearlessness. I'm willing to take a chance and say, you know, I'm going to make sure that everybody here ends the semester knowing what they need to know, but we're not going to do it in the usual traditional way.
I think
it's going to be a lot more interactive.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I haven't even finished my own stupid semester and I'm already getting excited about teaching other people. But the thing is too, and the course that I was given to this day is actually my favorite undergrad course. And I actually still go back and use that textbook to look up vitamins and minerals and just general information about nutrition, because it was a very basic nutrition and health course, but that's where it all began. And so I'm hoping that I give to those students coming in the same thing that my teacher for that class gave to me, in that I'll always remember certain things that I was taught and told and learned in that class.
And you'll convert someone into dietetics, you know, because I think that class is taken by different types of students. Yeah. So you never know. You might inspire a future dietitian that didn't even know they were going to be one.
Exactly. Or talk them out of it.
Or talk them out of it. Yeah, that too. That could happen.
So I was held hostage for 5 years in my 40s. Don't be like me.
And now I'm teaching you guys. So do you
teaching you guys
are you going to continue all your summer programming then too in the community to kind of keep growing your business?
Yeah, I feel like I have to, because I didn't really get much done. I was still in grad school last year, so I was just plugging in as I could. Sure. And now this year, while I'll still be busy and I'll hope to have more of a full-time job of some sort, or, you know, many part-time jobs, then yes, I do want to keep that momentum going, because I feel it's necessary if I want to get to that end goal and keep establishing myself as your neighborhood go-to person as far as nutrition is concerned. But also, it's fun. It gets me out of the house. You know, I get to chit chat with people. I get to do food stuff, which, you know, I do for myself. I don't like food service things. Like, I don't like doing food demos, being forced to do food demos on site for anything, but I like doing these little random things, you know, just generally for the public, or if I feel like doing something and incorporating that in a workshop, then I'll do that. So I think because, you know, food brings people together, right? It's fun to talk. It's fun to have people try things out. It's fun when the little kids walk up and they're like, I hate lettuce. Yeah. I'm like, I doubt that, but try this thing and see what happens. Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings you back to like your love for cooking and being in the kitchen and your childhood. And I think that's a great blend of things that you're passionate about. Yeah.
And I think it keeps the momentum going. It keeps me ingrained in it. If I may, I was going to say, I'm not tending to go towards community. I'm going to have that as a part of it. But as I come towards this like second and a half year of dietetics, there's a lot of clinical things that I'm actually enjoying in some of my other jobs, that I think that's going to be the primary focus of dealing more with doctor referrals and maybe plugging myself into offices and getting more involved in like outpatient health medical things, and then doing these things on the side as more wellness, community wellness program type of things that I can get involved in on a voluntary basis, or as like a secondary income type of thing at some point. But I think that helps me, because then I don't like being too much of one thing. I like kind of having a hand in a bunch of different channels.
I would have never guessed that about you. Just kidding.
What?
I don't foresee
I'm so cookie cutter.
I don't foresee one boring minute in your life whatsoever when it comes to anything.
No.
So
I know. I wonder if I need to get tested. Maybe it's like an adult ADHD thing or something. I don't know.
No,
whatever.
I think you're fine. No, that's what I love about you, because you're just always doing and trying new things. And I love that you share it on social media, so then people see all the opportunities that are out there, whether you create them or whether they come to you.
Yeah.
It's all what you make it.
And I think, or I should say, I hope I do the good and the bad. I think on social media, and a lot of the guests that you've had on, I think also speak on this as well. It just always looks so perfect out there, and it's always so ideal. And I wish I had that. I was able to do this way of doing things, and instead I'm doing it sloppy like this. And I think there's I mentioned this, I think, in my post the other day, there's vulnerability, right? There's strength in vulnerability. Like, you can say, it's okay, we're not perfect behind the scenes, we're not perfect in front. So if I do something, much like I did an event last year, one of those little outdoor supermarket things, I think 3 people showed up and we were out there for 2 hours, but I was like, whatever. Okay. So it wasn't the timing. But again, like I was saying before, you have to take the chance. You have to do something. Not everything's going to be a success. And then hopefully you gain confidence from it. So I think my boyfriend's in earshot, but I'm going to say this because this is what happens in my life is I'll do something, it won't go well, and he'll immediately say something like, babe, it's fine. Just, don't worry about it if you don't want to do it again. I'm like, are you kidding? Oh my God, I want to do it 10 more times. I don't give up once. You crazy? So he's thinking he's being nice with the advice of it's okay if you just want to let it go. I'm like, hell no. I got to do this 20 more times, because you have to gain momentum. You can't just try one thing and think the whole world's going to respond immediately. You have to build that momentum, especially if you're in a world of entrepreneurship where that's the whole point of it. I mean, rare does somebody go viral day one. And so, it takes a little bit of up ramping and consistency. And yes, behind the scenes, you get tired for it, but you also develop tweaks and you start trying to see where can I improve. And I think that's where feedback comes into play too. So not just with my volunteers, but, anytime I do an online program or any kind of session, even with outpatient settings that I have, the counseling sessions that I have in my outpatients, I'll also say at the end of the conversation, was this beneficial to you? What are your takeaways? I don't just sign off and go, okay, thanks, come back in 3 weeks. So I always like feedback. I want to know how I can be better, because then that grows success. And then that makes me excited to continue doing it. Because then otherwise, what's the point?
So true.
I'm back to 4 years ago going, I don't want to do this anymore. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And and that's not where you want to go. So that's a good message. Definitely don't give up. Just keep going. Keep going, people.
Yeah.
Dina's inspired.
Right. Exactly. Or like I've said before, if you feel like you need to give up, then go ahead and do it to create more room for something else that you feel adamant or passionate about. Allow yourself to dump that thing that's holding you down to continue forward with something else. But don't give up on something that you feel is really important to you just because it didn't work one time.
Yeah, that's true. And it's hard to remember that, but it is definitely something that you should apply through your whole life with everything that you do. Well, I'm excited to see postgraduate Dina's future.
Oh, me too.
You're like, me too.
I have an idea what it looks like, but I like surprises.
I was like, I want documentation of you laying down for a week. I want to see that every day. Laying down.
I don't know if I could actually even do it. I feel like I'm just not that person. I want to be, but the mind just keeps going. Yeah. Like I said, I really feel like maybe I should get checked. It's like, shut up.
Maybe like
stop talking. Let me rest for 5 seconds, Dina. Okay. I'm also Dina though.
Yeah,
who are you talking to?
Yourself. Yeah. You're like, wait.
Yeah.
You're like having that conversation with yourself. That's funny.
Yes.
Well, I always say this. A lot of my guests that I have on here, we will have to have a post graduation / follow-up conversation to see what you're doing and where you're at. Cause I know there's going to be a lot of awesome things in your future. So, and I would definitely put your contact information and your Instagram so people follow her, because you're very inspirational. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You do. And I don't pay you extra for it at all.
Oh, you take
the scale. You take the scale fee and you're happy with the scale fee that I send you. Thank you. I'm kidding. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Now that I've asked you all these hard questions, let's ask you some fun questions. Yeah. And I did give these to you previously, but what is your favorite food?
Yeah, so I always do say, right, pasta. I joke about being Italian. I feel like if I don't have pasta and a heaping amount of cheese on the pasta at least once a week, that someone from Italy will come and revoke my countryship from me or something. But interestingly enough, I like it very plain, like a nice, clean tomato, nothing too saucy, just like clean tomato, basil, shredded fresh basil on it.
Yum.
And that's it.
That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite beverage?
My favorite beverage is ginger ale, and I don't know why.
Probably
I'm not a soft drink drinker.
Tummy issues. Was it because of that?
Oh my gosh, is it? Maybe that's where it started. That's so funny. When I have in my house, there's no soft drinks at all. I mean, we have seltzer for bubbly stuff, but I never have soda in the house. I rarely have juices and so on. But whenever I go out to eat, I will always order a ginger ale. So I don't drink alcohol. Maybe that's like my go-to, beverage of choice or something. I don't know. But that's true. Maybe it came from when I was first having some GI things and I was like, ginger ale does the trick. Yeah, I don't know. I've always liked ginger ale.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's your favorite scent?
My favorite scent is a combination either between like lavender and eucalyptus because it reminds me of spa. Yeah. And I often say to myself, I would love to go back to the spa and treat myself to a facial, a massage or something, which, okay, fun fact, is actually going to probably be happening next weekend. Like I actually made an appointment. Let's just see if I actually can go. So yeah, I'm going to
make that a priority.
I'm going to treat myself. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be in a white robe and slippers and padding about and having somebody smash my skin.
That sounds amazing.
Which is going to feel awesome. Yeah. And I'll hopefully smell lavender and eucalyptus while I'm at it. Yeah. There's something just clean. Well, the funny thing is the lavender scent, it can be, and eucalyptus too, I guess, can be kind of off-putting, a little strong for some people, but there's something about it. I just feel like I'm in this field of breeziness and yeah, it's nice.
Like pure bliss.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Take me away.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color, like yours, I believe, is purple.
Yeah. I love purple.
Is that true? Yours is purple too? Purple. So I think this is probably related to, I'm a February baby, as you are. Yes. Amethyst is our stone, which is purple. But, and now I know I'm dating myself. I don't even know if anybody even knows who Donny Osmond is anymore. But back in the day, Donny and Marie Osmond used to have a show on television, like a little variety show, like 1,000 years ago. And he used to always wear these purple glittery socks. And I know for a fact that's where it came because I was like, oh my God, I love Donny Osmond and I'll do anything that he does. And purple's my favorite color. But it really has to be a specific shade. I don't like when it's too pink. I don't like when it's too blue. I don't know what the name of it would be. Maybe lavender. Maybe lavender would be a good, yeah.
Did you have purple sparkly socks? Did you get some?
I probably did.
Yeah,
I probably did. It's one of those, I was looking at I should say I listen to your podcast often, so I know that these questions are coming up, but I was thinking to myself, just because something is a favorite of mine doesn't mean it has to happen every day. Like I don't wear purple head to toe all the time.
Yeah, no.
But I for sure wear a lot of purple. That's like a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't even think, it's funny. I don't even own anything purple, but I like purple. Like I have things in my house that's purple, which is weird.
That is, yeah. Yeah. I will randomly walk in places and they're like, oh, you wore purple last time too. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not the same clothes, is it? And they're like, no, it's not the same clothes. What the heck? So I guess I'm drawn to certain vibrant colors and obviously purple being one of them.
Huh. Yeah. Interesting.
Don't send me things purple. Whoever's out there listening to this right now, I have enough purple
you don't need
things.
Anymore. Okay. Yeah. And your apartment's not very big. You don't have a big apartment. So
oh my gosh, there's
in there.
No, nothing. Oh, this is fun. Like nothing's allowed in my apartment. I even get mad when people bring me housewarming gifts or like hostess gifts. I'm like, please don't. Like if we can't eat it and get rid of it right now, it can't come into my house because I have no place to put anything. Yeah, it can't. There's a place for everything.
Absolutely. What brings you joy in life?
I'm cracking up because I just negated the answer to this. 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Sleep. I just want to sleep. I just want to go lie down and not sleep. The girl needs sleep. I don't know. I mean, some people can do it. I remember Martha Stewart being like, I can get by on 4 hours. I'm like, that can't be right.
No.
But I don't. I get really groggy, really foggy. I don't feel like I function properly. And my true body clock is probably at about 7 hours and 15 minutes. Like if I go to sleep with no alarm and I let myself wake up, it's usually around the 7 hour and 15 mark where I'm like, okay, that's like the sweet spot right there. So I don't necessarily need 8, but I guess that would be to target it and then see what happens, how close I can get to that. But I know for sure if it's like 6 or less, forget it. I'm mush.
Well, maybe after your spa day, you'll get it.
Maybe I'll just sleep at the spa.
Well, you probably will. If you're
I live there now. Right? Like, do they know? They won't know if I just go like lie down in the lounge. Right? They put you in the lounge sometimes when you're done with your service. What if I just hang out there for like a whole day?
Probably would let you. They'd probably like, man, that girl needs it. She needs to relax.
Right? We're gonna close, ma'am. We're gonna close soon. We're no rush, but
yours. Are you stuck? I'm sorry for
oh gosh. Oh my gosh. See, that's like the new goal. That's going to be the goal. Just plug myself in random spas wherever I can fit.
Sleep.
Just take a nap. Yeah.
I like it. Exactly. It's an adventure.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for taking time today and chatting with me.
Thank you, Anne.
Part 2 for sure. So, again, I'll list your contacts and hopefully you get some new friends to reach out to you. And thanks so much.
You. Oh, thank you so much. I'm very, very honored to be part of this. And I appreciate everything that you do as well in the dietary world and as far as the dietetics world and also for social media too. So keep on doing you as well, Miss Anne.
Aw, thank you. Dina and I could have talked for at least probably the rest of the afternoon. I think everything Dina does is so genuine and comes directly from her heart. I would have loved to have her as a preceptor. She would have been so great during my internship. And I'm looking forward to catching up with her again and seeing what life is like after graduation. And also to see if she maybe took some time off after graduating to relax and refocus on all the exciting next steps she has in her life. My website, AnnaElizabethRD.com, is where you can read my latest weekly wisdom blog post, where I share my current adventures, food I'm eating, and the music playlist I create for my fitness goals. I might also include a really delicious real deal recipe, and I always include what I'm loving right now. You can find all my previous podcast show notes and links to the things we talked about during all my conversations with my favorite people. And you can also purchase my book from the website. Please connect with me on social media by finding me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest at AnnaElizabethRD. Remember to be great always, find the joy in each day, and to start a conversation that truly matters.